One day, while having lunch with my friend, we talked about our summer vacations we had when we were growing up. My friend and her family always went camping with her dad's best friend since childhood and his two sons, and they would go camping every summer to the same place. She then proceeded to tell me the following. Uh, can't you just smell the fresh air? Hear the peace and quiet of it all? The serenity that fills your soul with never-ending thoughts of how life really could be? Do you know what I'm talking about? Camping, that's what. There's a special place, Highland Lake, located in the Tahoe National Forest, where I spent many summers with my family. Every summer, for approximately 2 weeks, my family and I and some very dear friends would go camping. It was such fun. The anticipation of preparing for the trip, getting the stuff packed the night before, and getting up early the next morning at 4 so we could hit the road by 6. My father was very strict about that. He hated to leave any later than that because of the traffic. The preparation for the trip was almost as fun as the trip itself. I knew the routine very well because my first vivid memory of going camping was when I was about 5 years old. Although my mother told me I went on my first camping trip when I was about 2 months old. My mother would make a list of things that we would need to take and would start putting together some meals that we would enjoy. My family and I worked together to ensure that everything we needed was packed the night before, with the exception of the cold stuff, for example, meat, cheese, beer, and sodas. The morning of our departure, my mother would awaken us at 4 a.m. and make us fried egg sandwiches with your choice of ham, bacon, fried bologna, or Spam, sometimes with cheese, and of course, drink lots of coffee. My sisters and I were like zombies because we had to get up so early. However, we always did feel better after eating breakfast. We would hit the road by 6 a.m. on our way to meet our friends at a gas station by 6:15. My father and his best friend since childhood, James, would chat a few moments while James would be standing there holding the gas nozzle, putting gas in his truck, and my father would also be standing there on the other side of the gas pump with one hand in his jeans, and you could see them talking about which way we were going to go, the same way or try another route. It was always exciting because anything could happen that might make the trip more exciting. We would make one pit stop at Nyack Lodge for gas and for my mother, sisters, and I to use the restroom. Okay, all you girls have exactly 5 minutes to go use the restroom, and if you're not back here by then, I'm leaving, my father would always say. I knew that he didn't mean it. It was just his way of keeping us on track. This was just a normal routine, so my mother, 2 sisters, and I would know even if you didn't have to go, you better go anyway. I always thought it funny on how the women only got one pit stop, but the guys had numerous pit stops. We would usually arrive at our destination around noon in time for lunch. We would eat lunch and afterwards start setting up camp. We put up the tent, which was made of canvas tarp, but first you had to find a level surface and remove all the rocks. Next, my dad would spread out the tent. Each bottom corner had a metal loop and a spike, similar to the spikes used in railroad tracks, was pounded into the ground. Next, my dad would enter the tent and put the poles inside the tent, which would support the inside, and then take the ropes coming down from the top corners and had metal loops on the end and drive a spike through there as well. My dad and his friend James would create a barrier around the camp using a canvas tarp and rope around the trees, and in general, unpacking all the necessities that were brought along. The place where we camped was called Highland Lake. There were actually two of them, Big Highland Lake and Little Highland Lake. The only difference between the two was a slight difference in the size of the lake, and from where our camp was located, one lake was higher than the other, which would make one seem bigger. They were both great for fishing or just to stroll around and enjoy the fresh air. Several years in a row, the sons of our friends would bring a friend along. One time, my older sister's boyfriend came along. I remember a particular incident when my mother had purchased an Oh Johnny portable toilet. My father had told us to be careful using it because it could collapse or fall over. Well, needless to say, my sister's boyfriend needed to use the Oh Johnny. My father gave a stern warning about being careful when using it. He proceeded to go up the hill, and approximately 5 minutes later we heard him shout, "Ah, shit," and hollered for my sister to bring him another roll of toilet paper. They came down the hill about 10 minutes later and relayed what had happened. Apparently he did not make sure it was on a flat surface, and the legs locked. So he leaned over to wipe his butt, and the Oh Johnny collapsed, and he fell into his big steaming pile of poop. We teased him the whole rest of the trip, and we had such a good laugh. It was a very memorable trip. Needless to say, we never used Oh Johnny ever again. I was the last one to fly the coop, so to speak, and went camping with my parents up to Highland Lake until approximately age 22. My father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in December 1985, but before he got the final diagnosis, he went deer hunting with my uncle and grandfather up near Highland Lake. This was the last time he was able to go up to the mountains because shortly afterwards he had his first surgery that determined that he did indeed have pancreatic cancer. He passed away on Father's Day 1986. Even though I was saddened by his passing, I will forever have the memories of going camping at Highland Lake. Camping brought us closer as a family because we shared nature and everything it has to offer together. This was also the time that my father and I would bond yet even closer because we enjoyed camping, fishing, and hiking together. Also gave my family and I a chance to get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. I really miss camping because I so enjoyed being with my family and enjoying everything nature has to offer.